One of the most common relationship concerns isn't about love. It's about how sexual desire starts to drift over time. Two things are happening simultaneously. One partner feels completely rejected while the other partner feels a lot of pressure. Sex stops becoming about connection and it starts to become a problem that needs to be solved. The irony of the situation is that it isn't about incompatibility. It's about the psychology of desire and how it plays a role in the relationship. Did you know that desire and safety are neurobiologically linked? Meaning, in order for you to experience desire, you have to feel safe. And without that sense of safety, a lot of the desire will disappear. A lot of people mistaken sexual desire as something that happens in isolation when it is actually like a beautiful twin, a conjoint twin within your sense of safety. With safety, you have maximum desire. With limited or no safety, sexual desire just completely vanishes or decreases. What influences sexual desire? You have stress levels, emotional safety, nervous system regulation, relational trust. When someone feels emotionally unsafe or chronically stressed, their body will go into survival mode. I want you to think about you being in the woods with your partner and a bear is on its way to try to attack you. There's no sexual desire occurring in that moment because your body is in survival mode. When you are in survival mode, reproduction is not a priority when you are in what your body perceives as a sense of danger or unsafety. If your body determines that you are not safe, there will be no sexual desire that will arise from that. A major conflict trigger in most relationships is mismatched desire types. Many people assume that sexual desire is supposed to be spontaneous, where you get this sudden attraction. It's very understandable why people assume this because it's depicted in the media very often, where someone sees another person across from the room and they are instantly attracted, and all of a sudden they're getting busy, and then next thing you believe that that's how it's supposed to work. But research actually challenges this because many people actually experience responsive desire, and responsive desire is being able to feel connected first before the sexual desire actually increases or manifests itself in the body. Spontaneous desire is that the desire comes first and then the intimacy follows, whereas responsive desire is that the intimacy comes first and then the sexual desire comes after. Here's the thing, when couples don't realize the difference between sexual desires, it can be very easy to assume that your partner doesn't want you, that your partner isn't attracted to you, when in reality, your partner's brain is just simply different. Let's zoom in on stress and your libido. Sexual desire is greatly impacted by your emotional and mental bandwidth. When someone is overworked by work stress, school, kids, or the conflict you had last night that never came to a resolution, or even emotional burnout where you are burning at both ends of the candle, the brain simply cannot switch over to erotic because it is just doing everything it can to feel safe and protected. So when you have a high stress situation like parenthood and the sexual frequency and desire starts to dip in the relationship, a lot of the times the conclusion or the investigation starts with what's wrong with me or my partner versus looking at your environment to discover whether or not that's attributing to the lack of sexual desire and interest. This opens the door that it is not a relationship failing. It's a neurological overload that needs your attention. In addition to the stress that is actually happening, there's this experience called performance pressure. So you are already stressed about the things that are going on in your life. Your body is activated and your partner is giving you all the signals that they have had it with you not showing any interest. So you try to put yourself into the mix of trying to show a modicum of interest. And what ends up happening? This performance pressure kills any genuine interest in sex because you are too focused on the obligation to perform sexually versus actually enjoying the experience. Guess what? When you put pressure on your nervous system to perform a particular way, it is not received as a good thing. It's actually seen as a threat. And so your body goes back into that fight or flight response. And it is so interesting how our minds and body will start to make associations that will produce feelings of stress or pressure. So if the sex is obligatory, if it's met with guilt, or your partner becomes angry, all of those things become signals to your body that says we are officially in a unsafe place. The thing that I see within couples is this pattern called the pursuer and withdrawer. The partner that desires sex will pursue, will try to bring up the topic, and immediately the withdrawer, the person that withdraws from the conversation because they don't want to have any more conflict, will start to pull away. And when that happens, it only causes the pursuer to increase their desire, their push, and their pull to bring the partner back to the conversation. Then one partner is feeling undesirable and the other one feels rejected. And then you have this conundrum where the conflict just doesn't know how to resolve itself, to the point where you both maybe retreat into your respective corners and neither one of you talk about this. Both people are left feeling very much misunderstood. What are some steps to help this process, and in a way where both people feel heard, respected, and valued, and actually see some changes in their relationship? So the first thing is take the number out of the discussion, meaning it is not the quantity, it's about the quality. If you notice that you are spending more and more time about the frequency of how much you are having sex versus what it actually means, which is I want to get close and connect with you. If it's not framed in that way, it can be very easy for both of you to fall into the trap of creating pressure and shame and guilt. Number 2 is reduce the pressure cycle. This happens when you take the obligation out of the conversation. Sex is a gift. It is not an expectation, and it's a very important gift, but it also has to be a choice, an empowered choice. Both people have to feel empowered. What does it mean to reduce the pressure cycle in the relationship? Well, sometimes you need to recode the relationship by having non-sexual affectionate touch, meaning that just because I hug you or put my hand on your lap, that is not a code for sex, but rather it's time for you to experience touch and closeness in a way that doesn't immediately generate this idea that we have to have sex. Another one is intentional emotional check-in. Even asking, hey, did you have any spontaneous desires about us? Or were you aroused at all? Or how are you feeling right now, especially with the stress in your life? All the spectrum of the emotional check-ins allows for you to see what your partner is actually dealing with internally and being curious about all of it, and not with the agenda that I have to see if my partner is ready for sex. If you go in with that agenda, you are not necessarily curious about whether or not your partner is feeling safe or not. You're actually just wanting to have a transaction with that person, and your partner can detect that. Number 3 is understand desire style differences. Earlier, when I talked about spontaneous versus responsive desire, both of you actually can experience that. One partner might be prone to responsive desire while the other partner is more spontaneous, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is just exclusive and that is the only way. And sometimes the two of you can have different desire style. Talk through the experience from beginning to end so that your partner gets a window to what it's like to be inside your mind and in your body. Listen to understand instead of listening to just get to the agenda of sex. Expect long-term relationship to have fluctuations in desire response. Anticipate and expect that desire will fluctuate throughout your long-term relationship. Both of you are going through different seasons all the time, and you can't expect sexual desire to stay exactly the same when you yourself are different and evolving. Things like stress, hormones, health, emotional connection between you and your partner, and even life transitions all play a huge role in how sexual desire is either increased or decreased. And when both of you can have compassion and understanding for these changes without judgment, there is more opportunities for closeness, connection, and sexual intimacy. If this kind of conversation is helpful to you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. I post weekly videos about relationship intimacy and navigating non-traditional dynamics with more depth and nuance than you usually get on social media. If you want to go deeper, visit my website at intimacyinprogress.com, where you will find resources like therapeutic services, blogs, and other information to help deepen your intimacy. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss more conversations like this.